Hi, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition. I'm John Arezzi.
Weighing 225 pounds, John Anthony.
Looks like the road's getting a little hot now. Then he's scooped up by the tree.
How you doing, wrestling fans? And welcome to another edition of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind, where we bring you back to the early days of Inside Pro Wrestling Talk, covering the history of my groundbreaking radio show, which aired on commercial radio in the New York market from 1989 to 1995. Each week, the show is going to review a different original broadcast from that era, giving you a look back at some of the breaking news stories, historic interviews, and memories from that era. We're talking about the inside of the wrestling business on the radio, which is just beginning to gain some traction in the industry. On this episode, we're going to review show number 12 of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, which originally aired on 1440 AM WNYG in Babylon, New York on June 25th, 1989. We had no recording of show 11, so that's why we're skipping to show 12. So if you're a patron and you're on there and you're looking for Pro Wrestling Spotlight Show 11 at WNYG, none exists. So sorry about that. We also would like you to consider supporting our efforts on Patreon. It's $5 a month to get in. You get the entire archives of this menagerie of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. You get all the new episodes. You get them early. You get them commercial free. You have access to over 500 posts of audio content and so much more. $5 a month. And if you want to go to the all access tier at $15 a month, that's going to include videos. It's going to include 8mm films, photo sets. So those are the two tiers I recommend most. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/John Arezzi. Those Patreon dollars and your support on Patreon help us pay for the production costs for this program. So once again, check out the Pro Wrestling Spotlight Patreon page. Pro Wrestling Spotlight archives are all there. Just go to patreon.com/John Arezzi and check it out. Or if you want to email me for more information, john@mattmemories.com. Let's bring on Marsh. Lots of stuff developing and some breaking news that has been resurfaced after 32 years. Big stuff happening. Marsh, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
I'm glad you said that, because you're going to say, uh-oh, when we start getting into the first topic of the day, which is newsworthy and timely, although it does date back to 1992.
Yeah, so a little
back.
We're not quite there as far as these tapes go yet, but yeah, it was definitely a topic you covered extensively in 92. And color me surprised when I saw it pop up on my feed the other day. Like, what?
You know, I had gotten, this is all about Ring Boys and the and the abuse that they suffered by the hands of Mel Phillips. And there's a new lawsuit that was filed, and we'll talk about that. But I had become aware of something going on literally 5-6 days ago. I started getting some texts, some people who I had been discussing some documentary stuff on, who were, talking about wanting to do a documentary on how controlling Vince McMahon was and all of that. Of course, Netflix had theirs, but this was another major producer that had been in some discussions with me. And I started getting texts, you have this one's number. Do you have this ring, the ring boy? I was like, well, what are you asking me this stuff now? They say, because there's a lawsuit that was just filed. And I was like, I had no idea. And I didn't, think much of it. And then I got a text yesterday from Vinny from West Babylon.
No kidding.
Listener, our old producer. Yeah. So he texted me, "Hey, John, McMahon made top of the news here on Long Island, ring boy abuse." And I was like, I couldn't believe it, and then I answered back, and I said stuff from 32 years ago is still alive. And then I did a search on the internet, and lo and behold, it's like every single news outlet under the sun is reporting on this new lawsuit. So it was so surreal to me that I figured since we were taping today, I need to go over this stuff because I was covering it 32 years ago. And I know Mel Phillips, or knew Mel Phillips. He died in 2012. I hope he's rotting right now. I knew Mel and met him in 1974.
Yeah.
And I think I've shared the story before, but I was at the Wrestling Fans International Association convention for my Freddie Blassie fan club, and got the fan club of the year and the best monthly fan bulletin. I was a kid, and Mel was there, and that's where I met Mel Phillips, and he was voted fan of the year by the Wrestling Fans International Association in 1974. So I reacquainted myself with Mel in 1975. I had started college, Graham Junior College in Boston, and I started covering the matches in Philadelphia in 1975. I used to start going to the tapings, and that's where I started developing a friendship with Mel. And throughout that friendship, I always noticed there was something a little quirky, something not right about this guy. He would always look to, like, I'm coming through the New York area. You mind if I stay at your place? And I have to clear that with my mom. So he spent some time on Long Island a few times. I think he even spent the New Year's Eve there once.
How old were you?
And he brought this. It was a 75, so I was 17.
Okay. And how old was he?
Yeah. He was older. I would say he had at least 10 years on me, I would guess. Mm-hmm. And he would tell me that he's a member of the athletic commissions for the state of Pennsylvania, and he worked for wrestling, and so yeah, he was on TV. He was he worked there. He used to take the ring jackets back and all of that before he started ring announcing. So but it was the oddest thing that when he would come over and spend the night, that we had some neighbors with two young boys there, and he always asked about them when he would come over. I'm not going to mention their names, obviously. How are those young, blah 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 blah. And every time I'd see him, like, how are those young? How are those boys? The blank boys. He used to call them by their last name. So I thought there was something strange about that. And even when he came over, I think it was a New Year's Eve. He came over, and I live with my mom, my sister, la 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 la. So he brought over it was like a videotape machine with the movie Young Frankenstein on it. He had a tape of Young Frankenstein, and he had a camera, and I was like, boy, this guy's like, how can he afford, this is like 1975, how can he afford like this video camera and this equipment? And I always wondered, like, and reading the indictment and everything else, like, he used to film some of his encounters with these young boys. So it was strange. And then he had come to even my college, come to visit. He did Pro Wrestling Spotlight when I had the college episodes, and I still have some tapes of that. But he would come visit me in the dorm, and I was going out with I met a girl at college, and I got pretty serious. And Mel came over once, and he was like, what do you do? I said, I'm hanging out with my girlfriend, so he was like, oh, come on now, like. So I always had this kind of sneaking suspicion that there was something not right with him, right?
Yeah.
And even at the dorm, one of my best friends, he started wrestling my friend once. And I put him on the ground and started putting him in this like leg lock or foot lock or whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Um, so I started really distancing myself from him in like 76, I think it was. And there were times where when I was covering the matches and going to Philly, they'd tape in Hamburg the next day. And a few times I drove with him from Philly to Hamburg, and we'd stay in Reading at there was a place called the George Washington Inn, I remember. And I just reminisced with you before we started taping that one of those trips we had Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen in the car with us. Yeah. But he'd always want to share a room, like share a room. And so I'm like, I wonder if, back then I was a teenager. I certainly, I thought I was a handsome guy back then, but I was a young guy, and I came from a home that was like, we had no money really. It was like, sometimes I think all these years later that maybe I was being groomed myself for something. He would have died back then if anything ever would have happened. I would have either killed him myself, or I would have had my dad to get one of his friends and take care of this fucking guy. So, but anyway, all these allegations, and when all this stuff broke years ago, 30 something years ago, and being on the Donahue show, and all of that, him paying off Tom Cole before the show, but now 32 years later to see this, Marsh, and I'll get into some of it, and I read the Observer this morning, and Dave Meltzer, who was back then covering it, and he's always so good with his research and to detail things. We'll get into that a little bit, but I just found it so surreal that here I am, and I posted something on X, because I don't post a lot on X on my wrestling account, and all I did today was just post like, the very top of the food chain at WWF knew about Mel Phillips and did nothing to stop it for years. I was covering all this in 1992 weekly on Pro Wrestling Spotlight. It's just surreal reading all of this today. Just surreal. And here I am. I'm like, it's been reposted 60 times. It's got 200 likes. It's like this story just kind of, it seems like people are really learning it for the first time.
Well, not a lot came of it, right? When they did it in 92.
Well, all the ones that got hot and heavy, like, potential lawsuits or criminal investigations, McMahon settled. Like, he paid Tom Cole, like, a few days before the Donahue show, gave him, I think it was $50,000, and gave him his job back in the WWF, and said that Mel and Terry Garvin, and even Patterson at the time, because his name was lumped into it, would never be back with the company again. And he dealt with Linda McMahon a lot back then, Tom. And so there was never anything. I mean, once the sex scandal started to happen, and all the guys like Murray Hodgson and Barry O and the others that were alleging stuff, and then the Donahue show, but the Ring Boy stuff was almost kind of like pushed aside. It never really got the attention it truly deserved back then. And it kind of went away. And now there are so much details that have come out in this new lawsuit that was filed this week, that even me, for the first time reading some of it, I'm like, this is fucking horrendous. And the fact that it was well known that Mel had this fetish for young boys, and he had this foot fetish, it was widely known. And the fact that he was fired in 1988 by the McMahons and then brought back with the caveat saying stay away from young boys in 1988. And this shit continued for years.
How long was he there when he came back?
Well, then, 88 till 92 when the Tom Cole stuff then broke, and then he finally left. And here's the thing. I mean, when he left, WWF gave Mel $300,000 to leave.
Fuck.
$300,000. And Mel died in 2012. But it's also fucking shady. And this lawsuit, and I'll get into it a little bit, unless you have any questions first before I go into it a little bit. And we are diverting from our regular format, but we have a great rewind to come. But I felt that I needed to address the story because I was so closely involved in reporting on it in '92, and I knew Mel from 1974.
Yeah.
So this was the most detailed. This is the most detailed information I ever had on it, just based on what this lawsuit spelled out.
The lawsuit that's coming up, it's from the victims or the families of the victims? Like, is this direct?
It's
or
from the
slightly
actual.
indirect?
There are 5 ring boys that have come out, and of course Tom can't sue because Tom's dead. Tom hung himself a few years back after I was communicating with him. He had always said that I treated him with respect. Tom Cole did, and back then I had reached out, and he reached out back, and we were exchanging messages for a while. This was before Patterson died, and what Tom's brother Lee says, and it could very well be true, is after Pat Patterson died, and then people started like putting Pat Patterson high up on a podium, like Tom couldn't handle it anymore, and he wound up hanging himself. So it's just so ugly and shady. But Tom went through the mill, and Tom can't participate in this lawsuit because he's dead.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an 81-page lawsuit, and it really started once this documentary on McMahon came out on Netflix. There was a law firm in Baltimore representing 5 unnamed plaintiffs who said they were sexually abused in the 1980s, and it was against Vince and Linda McMahon and TKO Holdings, ironically, which I think that is, that why would TKO Holdings be in it? Because the McMahons are not really part of that company now. This is all pre-TKO.
Yeah. That's the only thing that I think there's gonna be a lot of sully on this is the fact that it appears on face value, and it is what it is, just what it looks like, even though it probably isn't. It looks like they waited for the company to become $1 billion company, and now they're like, let's get some money out of this because nothing came of it before. Because like you said, Vince isn't involved. TKO was never involved. It's just the people who they can sue now. Feels like.
Well, I think it's Vince and Linda. TKO, I don't see anything there, but I think it's not a money grab. It could be, it could not be, but I think the reason, and I guess there are over the years, statute of limitations was a big thing. You can't file a lawsuit if there's a statute of limitations, and the reason this case was reopened and filed in Maryland was in 2023, last year. The state of Maryland passed the Child Victims Act, which eliminated the statute of limitations on child sex abuse lawsuits. So that gave the green light for them to start the proceeding to investigate, to file a suit. And there are 5 defendants in this suit, all under the name John Doe. And the lawsuit states that the WWE and McMahons had a responsibility to underage boys, and they failed them in the worst possible way. So anyway, let me go back a second. The suit claimed Mel Phillips. In a press release, the firms claimed that the plaintiffs were underage boys hired by the late Melvin Phillips Jr., Mel Phillips, who was both a ring announcer at live events and headed the ring crew, and that Phillips sexually abused them. The suit claims Phillips targeted children from broken homes, that he sexually assaulted them at arenas the WWF booked, and also in hotel rooms. The lawsuit claims that defendants, the McMahons, were fully aware of the systematic and pervasive abuse and did nothing to stop it. The suit claimed an FBI investigation identified at least 10 ring boys abused by Phillips, although no charges were ever filed, and Phillips passed away in 2012. So the details on the lawsuit, which is out there publicly if you want to go find it, it's so horrific. Some of this stuff. The story first broke in 92. Jeff Savage of the San Diego Union Tribune broke the first story with Tom Cole with his brother Lee, who was, Tom's older brother, and he got involved. And then later Muchnick of the Post started really covering it. Cole, of course, worked in the ring crew, claimed he was fired after he turned down sexual advances from Garvin. And so that was when he left. And then when Tom was going to file his lawsuit, it was secretly settled by McMahon. There's just so much here. So I don't know how much more I want to even get into, but I felt it was necessary to talk about this because how much of a media frenzy it is now.
Yeah.
32 years later. But I think this really is kind of maybe the last. And now people are saying there's going to be more people coming out now that there's the statute of limitations. It's over. So who the hell knows what the future holds? But this is drumming up stuff from 32 years ago, which really 32 years ago, it should have been investigated more. It should have been covered more. We're in a different time back then, but
back then, this kind of stuff, people, I mean, it's relatively new to the social zeitgeist that men or boys are even capable of being raped, in quotes. You know what I mean? That's been happening for a long time, but a lot of the law enforcement and a lot of society just turned a blind eye a lot of it too, because it was like, oh, that can happen. And we're in a much better space now where we can acknowledge that it does.
Yeah. And men are men,
Yeah.
Who even as an adult man wants to admit that any abuse would happen to them years ago.
Yeah.
So it's just, and it's so bizarre because of how this stuff was orchestrated, where you have kids in various cities, and Mel was always with a kid. He was always with a young kid, teenager kid. He was always with one. He was never like alone. If you saw him, even at the Nassau Coliseum or working at any of the shows, he always had kids around him. Always. So it's very unsettling, and you got to look right back at the people who were at the top of the food chain. That, as I said on my X account, they knew. Everybody knew.
Yeah, you don't bring someone back with a stipulation saying you can't be around minors anymore if you don't have a feeling that something's
young
going
boys
on
anymore. Yeah. So, but the thing is, McMahon's attorney, Jessica Taub Rosenberg, released a statement saying, more than 30 years ago, the columnist Phil Muchnick tried to make headlines with these same false claims. This is McMahon's defense. Those allegations were never proven and ultimately became a subject of a defamation lawsuit against Mr. Muchnick, which Phil Muchnick never paid McMahon or the WWF a penny in this defamation lawsuit. And so she continues, the negligent claims against Mr. McMahon that were asserted today rely on the same absurd, defamatory, and utterly meritless statements by Mr. Muchnick. So they're blaming Muchnick for this lawsuit in this defense. We will vigorously defend Mr. McMahon and are confident the court will find that these claims are untrue and unfounded. I tell you, if this ever gets to the court, if this suit ever gets to the court, I cannot wait for it. You talk about Janelle Scott. You talk about all this other stuff.
Yeah. Did Mushnick lose a defamation case and so he had to pay a penny?
No, it was dropped by both parties. Here, let me read what Meltzer wrote about it.
Yeah.
I'm getting a call. I think it's Vince McMahon. Are you up to it? Are you up to your nonsense again, Arezzi?
I know this is you, Arezzi.
I know this is you, pal. You're not getting away with it this time. All right, so I'm going to go like this here. What Meltzer wrote. You have the fact that Vince and Linda McMahon fired Mel Phillips in 1988 for engaging in the improper activities with young boys, hired him back with the caveat of steer clear of the kids. The clear acknowledgement that they knew that Mel Phillips engaged in improper activities with young boys. It was there in plain sight. And anybody who has a child or anybody with a moral compass would recognize that when you put all of these facts together, you got a major problem. And this person should not be hanging around young boys, certainly with the aura and the power of being affiliated with the WWF in a public-facing role as a ring announcer. So when you look at all of these things, this has very little to do or nothing to do with Phil Muchnick. And I should note that the defamation lawsuit, Truth, is a defense, and Phil Muchnick in the New York Post paid $0 to the WWE. They walked away from the case, meaning WWF. They walked away from that case because what they knew is that Muchnick told the truth, and there was ample other evidence outside of what Muchnick reported that show this is absolutely true, and the WWF and Vince and Linda McMahon knew it. And then you have testimony of a dozen wrestlers, executives that talked about seeing it in plain sight and telling McMahon, and then he would say, I'll take care of it. So it goes on and on and on. And there's a lot of explicit stuff in here, which I'm not even going to get into. But the one thing about Linda is that, you know, she is the head of Donald Trump's transition committee if he gets reelected. And she was part of his cabinet in his first term as the Secretary of Small Business. So this ain't going to make her look good this close to the election coming, but that's a total separate thing anyway. But this stuff, after all these years later, that's why I'm saying I hope that these men, they're not young boys anymore. They're fully grown, middle-aged men suing for $80 million. If this goes to court, I think it would be fascinating.
$80 million, though, is also a drop in the bucket for everyone involved. They could just end up getting paid off, and that's that.
Yeah, with the $30 million. I misquoted. 81-page lawsuit asks for an excess of $30 million in damages, stating the 5 plaintiffs and other ring boys were sexually harassed and abused by employees of the WWF.
I mean,
questions, comments?
This isn't. I mean, when you think about that time frame too, the late '80s, early '90s. I mean, this is when all the Michael Jackson stuff was going on. This is when Harvey Weinstein's doing his stuff. This is all stuff that didn't really come out until much later. It just feels like another one of these. Why does it seem like so many men on top, business-like or finance-wise, had this incredibly dark streak? You know what I mean?
Well, you go to present day with Diddy, with P. Diddy. I mean, look at what he's being accused of. Yeah, I mean that stuff is good. That could shake the entire entertainment world up, because there seems to be a lot of very high-profile people that could have been at these parties that Diddy was throwing, and there was a lot of alleged underage sexual activity and rapes and all of that. So, what the fucking kind of world do we live in? I mean, people think they can get away with anything.
And they have been for 50 years.
And they
You know
have
what I mean?
been.
Like, there's just got to be a point where we as a society, we as social people, we as human beings individually have to stop thinking in a way that allows money to get out of stuff, right? Like we exalt our celebrities so high that if these young people who are trying to become celebrities or trying to be around that, they're they have this high tolerance for abuse in a sense because they're just like, well, it's my brush with fame. Well, they've got the money. You know what I mean? Like, we've got to get to a place where, socially speaking, your money doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you've got to be held accountable. And the good news is that I feel like that society is shifting that way. I do feel like, not that I know any of them, I do feel like Triple H and Stephanie, and even I would say, so far as what I've seen of Nick Khan thus far, they're completely on the right side of this. Of if this happened under their watch, you'd see the hammer come down. Problem is we're still trying to get right from the last several decades of where it was just all okay because you could buy your way out, and that's bullshit, man.
Yeah. Hey, the thing with Mel was going on in the 70s, in the 80s, till the early 90s.
Yeah.
It was going on for a very long time.
What's crazy
And I
too
think
is 'cause
I dodged a fucking bullet with this fucking guy.
I think there's a very good chance
as a
that
young man.
I also think that if he was befriending you at 17, like, if it wasn't you, it was your friends that were in danger, right? Like, if he wasn't grooming you to specifically abuse you, he was trying to coerce you into being his doorway to those kids,
Others,
and
maybe. Yeah.
anyone in your circle
My orbit.
who was of
Yeah.
your age or younger. Those are the ones I want. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I think it could have branched even beyond you. So I think that not only did you dodge a bullet, but you protected those around you. You know, it's just crazy.
Yeah. I look back at it now and it's so surreal because he was so smooth and he was impressive. And for a young guy trying to get into the wrestling business, and I had Blassie fan club and I was just getting into the writing and reporting side of it. And he spoke a good game, and he was backstage, and but it was kind of like there was always you get that little gut feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and
Absolutely.
especially when he started visiting me at college, and I was like, something's amiss here with this fucking guy.
Yeah. So crazy. How many years were you friendly with him, I suppose?
I would say met him in '74, and that was just kind of like meeting him at the convention, the WFIA convention. And then it really started like in January of '75 when I started attending the Philadelphia TV tapings, where I was backstage covering the matches. And that's where the friendship developed even more. And then the WFIA convention in Boston in the summer '75, and then I was going to Boston, and he was traveled around a lot. He used to stay at different people's homes no matter where he was, and so that's where the friendship kind of grew. And I was so impressed with him because he said he worked for the athletic commission. I said, I got to bring him on Pro Wrestling Spotlight here at the college, and he come down to the studio, and yeah, and then it was like when he wrestled my friend. I was like, what's going on with this? It was like, this is kind of crazy. And I still keep in touch with my friend today. I'm not going to mention his name. But, and then, when he gave me that attitude, because I was kind of hanging around my girlfriend at the time. And that's when it started. And then I kind of, after wrestling in '78 and then kind of getting away from the business, then that was it. I really didn't have any communication or didn't see him again until I got back in.
Yeah.
And that was in '89.
So you started talking to him again back in '89?
Well, I saw him at a show. I saw him at Nassau,
Oh.
and just kind of acquainted with him, but I never had any friendship with him really since 78 when I started getting out, 78, 79. And then seeing him. And then when all these things started to surface, and I was like, holy shit, look at this.
That's nuts. So you never saw anything particularly, I mean, you saw things that were weirdly questionable and awkward, but you never saw like him go walk off into a car with some young kid or some shit like that. Like,
No, but he had boys around him all the time.
Yeah. This is nuts, man. And I only brought up the idea of like the money grab concept just for clarity as a devil's advocate concept because why now, right? Why now? And I think that, the idea that Maryland opened that up is brilliant. And that's exactly
I think it was
why
the
now.
combination of the Maryland stuff, opening it up, the statute of limitations so they could file there. And I also think, because it was touched upon in the McMahon documentary on Netflix, that was parcel of it. And so there's been a groundswell of this stuff. And hey, listen, if you're somebody that was abused, that you had this happen to you, and years later now you can get compensated for that horrific part of your life where you were sexually abused, go for the fucking money. If there's any consolation whatsoever. So there are 5 now in this lawsuit. So who knows what else will come out now. This shit never seems to stop. It just never seems to go away. And I'm just kind of like, years ago, I was, sometimes lambasted and criticized about my reporting. And, was this an attack on McMahon? And why am I always going after what's going on there? It's because it was fucking wrong.
Yeah.
That culture, and I said it time and time again, the culture of an organization stops from the guy on top or whoever's running it, the woman, the man, whoever's running it, and you create a culture of this type of stuff.
If the person who's meant to hold others accountable is A, not being held accountable, but also B, actively engaging in things that are being hidden away, it creates an environment
and then paying
where
people off and signing non-disclosure agreements back then in 1992, so their stories don't come out publicly. Yeah. And you bring somebody back, you give him $50,000, and then Tom, of course, had his own demons. Look, what he had to go through, Tom Cole, and then he gets let go by them, and then he tries to have a normal life, and he's get married, he's got some kids, and it just seemed to always haunt him.
Yeah.
And then he eventually kills himself. So that's why I'm just kind of like, when is it going to end? Because it just seems to never end. There's always more shit that comes out.
There's always more, but it's also consistently the same in the idea of like, this thing's not going away because it's not getting addressed, right? Every couple of years, it bubbles back up again. Like you said, some people are just finding out for the first time. I find that all the time. We have just such a young era of knowledge with the internet being as pervasive as it is, social media. I even saw people posting some really basic stuff, like things you never knew about XYZ. And you look at it and go, we all knew this. This happened in front of our eyes. But yeah, I think young eyes are on it. And maybe with any luck, new law will help hold these people to the fire,
Yeah, but I'm really like this one here. If I was them, I'd settle, pay these people off, give them what they want. He's got the money, he's made over $1 billion from stock sales, and he's got other problems too. So, but in the other way, if they're going to fight it using the defense that it was Phil Muchnick's fault, that's something to see. That I'd buy a ticket for. Because Muchnick was recently on I don't know if you saw the Piers Morgan interviews about the McMahon documentary with Maven and Vince Russo. And then they brought Muchnick on as kind of a surprise guest. And Russo and Muchnick were going at it. I mean,
I was about to say, why was Russo even there?
Because he was an expert that worked for Vince, obviously, his head writer. And they were talking about the steroids, and then Vince was, how Muchnick lied, and all that stuff was when I was partners with him. When he said that Muchnick wrote lies about the steroid symposium that I was banned from, and Russo went to, and that's where he met McMahon for the first time.
Yeah,
and they were just screaming at each other. I mean, that was you should watch. It's on YouTube. I mean, look for Piers Morgan and the wrestling panel that they just came out last week.
Wow.
And Muchnick was screaming, and it was just sounding like holy shit. And then all of a sudden, the next week, this stuff comes out. It's like this is fucking deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say. It's crazy.
It's insane.
We'll be following up here with this stuff, but I had to address it, Marsh. Thank you for indulging me today.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I saw a post, I was like, here we go again. This is it. With everything else coming McMahon's way, I don't know. It's just all nuts. It's all crazy. And the people who reached out to you for the content, was it people who were making their own documentary? Or was it people who were involved in the case?
I've been involved with, people. This is going back, I guess, 8 or 9 months now, that they had a concept.
Yeah.
About.
And it was
but it was like literally the same thing that Netflix did.
Yeah.
So it's like Netflix. I mean, once they announced that Netflix doc, I told them, I was like, this ain't never going to fly.
No, but if they have a new focus, then maybe it will.
Who knows? I said, they reached out to me and I had conversations with them, and there are people who have done big documentaries before, but personally, I don't think it'll see the light of day. But you never know. But it's like, because I have all these archives. That's the thing. It's like you have tapes of all this. You have all your radio shows. You got all of this. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I've been covering this shit since I was like a fucking 14 years old. I'm just gonna open my door here a second, if you don't mind. All right. I don't want my internet pod to be covered.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I know how you love when something's not uploaded when we stop recording.
Yeah. No.
Everyone, you should just see the nasty messages Marsh sends me sometimes when my stuff isn't being uploaded, and he starts berating me. It's like you think he's very mild-mannered on this show. But if you see Marsh off camera and you see some of the anger that he instills, it's abuse. Mental abuse, Marsh. I know. I'm sorry.
But yeah, let's get into the show. We got a lot of clips from it today.
Let's go back to before all this shit hit the fan. Let's go back to the good old days of 1989.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was that noise?
I mean, this thing's going to play out, and it never stops being crazy. This was a fun show. You're missing episode 11. You already addressed that, so we got right into episode 12, which ironically puts our episode numbers back on track because they were off by one because of the Kevin Sullivan special.
Yeah, so, now we're like copacetic. We're synced up.
Once again.
So this is episode 12 of the Rewind, and we're covering show 12 of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. It's perfect.
Yes. And you had a lot lined up here. You had so much lined up here. I want to play the intro of the show, as I like to do.
Okay.
As you set up the 101 interviews that you think you're going to play today.
Wrestling fans, welcome to another edition of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, heard each and every Sunday evening right here on 1440 WNYG. Yes, we had our exciting first bus trip. We've been on tour with the Great American Bash, promoted by the NWA. The last 2 days, we had the big bus trip Friday night. Had a bunch of our listeners come out to see a spectacular night of wrestling promoted by the NWA. Last night, I was in Philadelphia for the third stop on this big tour that they'll be going nationwide on. We have an exciting show lined up for you. Not only are we going to talk about the bus trip and the exciting events that happened that night, we have several guest stars that we interviewed, top names from the NWA. Tonight's show will feature an interview I did with Norman the Lunatic, escapee from an insane asylum, now managed by Theodore R. Long. We have the new NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Freebirds, with us tonight. We have an interesting event that took place in the dressing room. I was interviewing Jim Cornette, who is the manager of the Midnight Express. Midway through that interview, Paulie dangerously ran out and he stopped the interview, almost broke the tape recorder, and then I had a conversation with Paulie. We'll explain what the repercussions were concerning that. We also have a kind of a somber guest, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who recently lost the NWA World Heavyweight Championship back to Ric Flair and has been getting the beatings of his life, so to speak, taking on Lex Luger the last couple of nights, and we'll report on both those matches. We also have an interview with Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, and a possibility, we taped an interview earlier this week with David Sammartino, Bruno Sammartino's son. That's an exciting one. We're trying to retrieve that now from the basement of WNYG, since the doors were all locked when we came in today, and that's where my office is. So my sister and the producer, Bruce, are now attempting to climb through the window downstairs. So hopefully we will get that interview on. If not, we'll have it on next week. But we have plenty of guest stars for you, and we want your calls and comments to come in at 661-1440. We have lots to cover, so we'll get right back with the start of the program right after this.
Wow, that's a lot.
You were locked out.
Yeah, the basement was locked. And leave it to my sister and Bruce Bruce, weighed 130 pounds soaking wet, so he could climb through any window. So
Still,
that's right.
if there was a window I had to get through, I'm probably asking Bruce before me, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
to this
there
day.
you go. So it sounds like jam-packed, but a lot of stuff there for a show. Too much.
So much. And even just from a time perspective, your bus trip that you wanted to address is almost 20 minutes long. Your David Sammartino interview is almost 20 minutes long. Cornette and Paulie.
So this was all in the
10.
original version. This is through the original show that people can hear this entire menagerie if they go to Patreon.
Exactly. Norman the Lunatic was like 5. I just don't know how you thought it was all going to fit, given that you're only on for 2 hours. And these interviews are already at least an hour worth.
Yeah.
Plus you want to take calls.
Yeah.
So.
Commercials.
A lot. But this was your first bus trip.
It was packed.
It was at
great.
New Haven for the NWA show. Do you remember the show?
Oh, yeah. It was part of the Great American Bash Tour. They ran the same show around the circuit, and it was a very exciting time. NWA was hot as a pistol coming off the Flair Terry Funk angle that led to the main event at Great American Bash July of '89, which we'll be covering in future weeks. But yeah, it was great. And being able to sell out the first bus trip and everyone having fun. I mean, meeting listeners for the first time at a big event like this and getting to know the fans, and then having my sister aboard with Bruce. And it was funny, especially on the way home when, everyone's kind of napping. And this is before I started renting video buses, because when I started renting video buses, we'd be able to watch tapes. But this was like everyone's, sleeping, and my sister gets on the microphone. And if anyone had ever seen the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Nurse Ratched would always get on the loudspeaker and say, medication time, medication time. So my sister went to the front of the bus, and there were some odd characters on there for sure. She got on the microphone and she was like, medication time. Medication time. Wake up, all you wackos, or another word that will get you canceled today. So that was hilarious. The fact that she was there and Bruce was there and the listeners were there and we had great seats and it was fun. It was cool.
Out of curiosity, because we did in the full length, I do have a clip. It's actually one of our longer clips. We're going to get to it later of the bus trip when you do play it. I do play about 7 minutes of this 20-minute clip. But it does sound like everyone's having a really good time. Are there drinks happening? Is there smoke happening? Like, are you guys just that energized by the idea of just being the camaraderie of it all, which also happens?
Yeah, I don't think there was any influence when it came to alcohol or smoke or anything like that. There might have been some, that had some drinks in them, but certainly the vast majority, because we also had kids on the bus with their parents or whatever. So it wasn't a crazy drunken type of crowd. It was just kind of like we're out on this bus trip with other wrestling fans and, we're doing this cool thing, this cool trip to New Haven and seeing a great card with the NWA and it was just kind of that. It was just all of it. It was just kind of the camaraderie of being with each other for the first time, where a lot of the people who called into the show were like, now they're finally developing friendships. So when I got even the text from Vinny from West Babylon yesterday, and he goes, "You're the first one I texted," and then he started rattling off names of friends of his that he met through the show that he still keeps in touch with. So yeah, it was a bonding. It was a bonding experience for sure.
Yeah. Just listening to it too, and we'll play it and talk about it more when we get there. But it sounded a lot like that, and a lot of the kind of things you would see back then, even like the early 90s, everyone's calling everybody crazy. Oh, this wacko, oh, this lunatic, oh, you're crazy. And it's like, and it just kind of came off as like almost a false crazy, which is just kind of when dudes start hanging out and goofing with each other. How often was your sister in the studio while you were recording?
She'd come in every now and then. It wasn't an every week thing.
Yeah.
But she'd show up sometimes on a Sunday just to hang out in the control room and, and Bruce and her had a friendship as well. And, so yeah, she'd come in unexpectedly or just kind of hang in. She'd bring some food sometimes. And, so it was kind of cool. We lived, literally a mile.
Yeah.
She'd gotten married at, she'd been married at this time, but she still, I lived about a mile away. She lived with Thomas, her husband, a mile away. So it was easy to get to.
Yeah. I was wondering if when you found out it was locked out, I assumed you probably called her because she worked there. Do you happen to have a key to the basement?
Maybe that could have very well have happened. And then, do you have a key? And maybe she'll show up. And she kind of finagled away in the building to get what we needed to get. That could have very well been the case that I called her up and had her come there. But, that was her home, too. I mean, she started work there. 1982 was when I moved back from North Carolina, and I got a job at NYG just as a salesperson and started doing some baseball stuff there, sports reporting. And they were looking for a receptionist, and my sister introduced my sister there, and that was kind of the life-changing event for her because she stayed at WNYG till they closed their doors. She had quit. She'd quit and come back and quit and come back, but she spent a lot of time then. She was there till the very end of that station when they transferred ownership to an Hispanic group, and she started working for them until it was finally all over. So she had a lot of loyalty there, and she had a lot of history there, and she made a lot of friendships there over the years. And so NYG, she's still kind of her and my brother-in-law, because we got my brother-in-law a job there too. He used to drive the promo van, like go out to live remotes with a van, and he'd be the collector for the sales managers. Like he'd go out and collect the money from the account. So my sister and my brother-in-law are probably the best WNYG historians alive today, I would guess.
They should write a book.
They know everything about that place. It's book worthy, that place.
It's a nutty thing. I mean, and anybody who likes radio, which that's a dying breed, I think, at this point too. But I think that kind of stuff is fascinating. I think so. One of my favorite things about this show is not only are we getting like wrestling history, but I pick your brain about broadcasting too. Like, hey, what was that station like? What was this? Is the building still there?
Yes.
Is it
It
anything
was
else?
recently sold. I was in there, and I think it was 2019. I did my last tour there with Jim Jim Pearsall, who was kind of the holder of the key. He still was kind of a caretaker for the building, and then it was sold finally. But I was in there, and I filmed it in 2019 to do a tour with Jimmy in the studios where I broadcast from, and it was kind of surreal. But the building is still there. But now it's all cleaned up because that place was a pigsty. That was crazy.
Where's the video of you touring it?
I have it.
Have we ever posted it?
I don't think so.
Let's digitize it and goof with it. Maybe make something out of it. I don't know. It's probably a long video. Maybe we turned it into like a 1 minute little snippet.
Yeah, we have. I think I might have 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm interviewing Jimmy on it. And he passed away a few years ago. Very sad. He always tried, even over all the years, to get that station back on the air. That was kind of a dream of his. It was a dream, but he passed away a few years ago.
They should do something with it. I hope whoever does it, like, sort of gets it a little bit and makes a little podcast studio out of it. Rents it out. Because those are starting to pop up places, and that would be cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's a radio station anymore. Next time I visit New York, I'll have to see who owns it, but it's totally cleaned up, and there's a new business in there now, which is non-radio.
All right. Well, the next clip I got up here is your interview with Teddy Theodore R. Long.
Teddy.
All you fans out there, welcome Broadway Sonny Blaze, who just entered the WNYG studios, who accompanied us on the bus the other night. A great show last night. I was in Philadelphia.
I saw you come make it.
And it was a great card of wrestling. Why don't we do this? Before we even get into the results, let's just tease you a little bit with some of the interviews that we have right now. Excuse me, Rob. If you could put in the NWA interview tape, let's talk to a man who had victories the last 2 nights at the NWA Great American Bash. Norman the Lunatic with his manager Theodore R. Long. Now, this guy is a madman escaped from an asylum. And we're going to get to Norman the Lunatic and Theodore R. Long right now. Listen to the intelligence on these two. We're just trying to cue it up here, so we'll...
there's the intelligence for
There's the intelligence. See, we're here with the NWA at the Great American Bash Tour. Theodore R. Long, his newest...
Just a minute. Let me get you straight to every announcer that I talk to. Looks like I have to put him in their place. It's Mr. Theodore R. Long.
All right, excuse me, Mr. Theodore R. Long, and his newest protege, direct from the insane asylum, Norman.
Just a minute. There you go again. This man is not from no insane asylum. He's from the sanatorium. Make sure you get that right.
Well, he definitely looks like he's wearing hospital issues here.
I don't care what he looks like he's wearing, and I don't care what anybody says. He never done anything, okay?
All right, let's ask a question. How did you hook up with Norman?
It's none of your business. Norman is a childhood friend of mine. I've been knowing him for years, and it's a favor that I owe to Norman. So it's none of your business how I hooked up with him. It's one thing that I've just been knowing him all my life. Norman is a childhood friend of mine.
How do you control him?
What do you mean, how do I control him? The man's not crazy or nothing. You act like this man is insane or something. I don't have to control him.
Well, I could see.
But what do you mean you can see?
I see at the last class show, them trying to strap him back into a stretcher, taking him back.
They were strapping him into that stretcher because he was tired and he did not feel like walking back to the dressing room. And I have enough money to pay people to bring beds out and take him back. Okay, that's why they were taking him back.
So it's more or less an expense on your part as his manager.
Expense means nothing to us. Okay, there's nothing that Norman wants that I can't get for him.
Okay, what are your plans for Norman here in the NWA?
Well, my plans for Norman in the NWA is for him to beat up everybody that he steps in the ring with, and we're going to mostly try and leave him there. There are a lot of wrestlers that we're going to try to end their career.
So you feel Norman could probably do the job for you?
Say what?
He could do the job for you and take care of the competition.
Not doing the job. It's Norman out there taking care of business. Nobody's doing a job here, okay? Norman is my friend. He's only out there taking care of these people that are running around thinking they're going to run roughshod over everybody in the NWA. Well, it's not going to happen because Norman is going to put a stop to it.
Okay, what happens when he goes into the ring with a Sting, with someone of that caliber?
Okay, but Sting...
Or maybe the Road Warriors.
You mean the Road Runners? Is that who you're talking about? I never heard of the Road Warriors. I've heard of the Road Runners. And for this Sting situation, the only time I heard the word Sting is when I got stung when I was a little boy by a bumblebee. So that's what the Sting means to me, okay?
So obviously you have no fear, but does Norman have any fear? Can I speak to him for a minute?
You have no business to talk to Norman.
He's sitting right here, by the way.
I don't care. I don't know. I may let him say something. I don't know. Norman, do you want to say something to him? That's it. Thank you. That's enough. That's all Norman needs to say.
I guess the intelligence of Teddy Long, Mr. Theodore R. Long's stable. One question.
Mr. Theodore R. Long connection.
Okay, the Mr. Theodore R. Long connection, which you recently just started. You were basically thrown out of the NWA because of your poor officiating.
I was not thrown out of the NWA. I was victimized and misjudged, okay? I was wrongfully misjudged. The NWA had one of the best referees in the country. In fact, in the world today, they just didn't realize it, and they threw me out because they had people like Sting, Rick Steiner, and those kind of guys running around with a petition saying that I was incompetent, okay?
You also had one of the fastest counts I've ever seen against the Road Warriors.
I've never made a fast count. If you saw something that had a fast
Optical
count...
illusion?
Hey, listen, if you saw a fast count, it was only where they had to put fast forward on the film and made it look like I fast counted somebody. I never fast counted anybody in my life.
All right, we're getting nowhere quick here. This has been John Anthony.
Somewhere quick. You're talking
at the Great American Bash with Mr. Theodore R. Long and Norman the Lunatic.
Hey, now the Lunatic, don't start it, pal.
Yeah, that was it. Norman was kind of looking at me like he was going to take a chunk out of my forehead with his toothless mouth of his, and in the background, Wild Bill Irwin was snapping that bullwhip right next to my ears. It was an interesting night back there at the New Haven Coliseum.
I love that interview.
Norman.
Yeah.
That's all
But
you
it was
need.
great. Teddy was always good, and that was the first time I had a chance to interview him, and just he was good. He was good. And it was great because we discussed, the tone of the interview before we started, and obviously totally kayfabe and all of that. But it was very entertaining, and I could push him, because I could go, and then he would answer, and it was a good dynamic, and he let me kind of, act like like I was really interrogating him, and he was very quick to respond, and he was very sharp. And Norman was just in a chair. I remember him sitting down near us, but I think we got the best we could out of Norman with that one grunt.
Didn't we have Norman on a week or two ago? Didn't we play an interview with him where he said a bunch of stuff? I want to hurt him. I'm gonna hurt him.
No, that was Crazy Don Rock.
Don Rocker. That's what I was thinking of. Okay. Who was Norman the Lunatic? It wasn't Norman Smiley, was it?
Mike Shaw. And then
Mike
he became
Shaw.
Bastion Booger. He was Bastion Booger because Vince McMahon hated him because he was so obese. And then he was a friar also, like a friar, somebody. He had a lot of different incarnations of his character.
Oh yeah. This is
And he
great.
looked
Someone
worse
put
every Bastion Booger.
Yeah. Throughout his career, he never got in better shape.
No, he was big.
I don't know, because someone put a picture, and I'll grab it and use it because it's not like they own these other pictures, but they compiled 6 pictures of his different personas.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, do that.
You'd be really hard pressed to point at one of those and say that was the peak of, like, which one was the peak of his career? No clue.
Yeah, he was a heel, then he turned friendly babyface, and but McMahon really. Just because he didn't like his physicality, I mean, McMahon would put him in these gimmicks and it just made him look so horrible.
Yeah, the Bastion Booger look was specifically to see how awful they could make him look. And what was it? Bruce had said that he came up with the name Bastion Booger on accident. More or less, he was joking because Vince was going, he's disgusting. He's so gross. And he's all like, he's like a booger. And he goes, that's it. We'll call him Booger.
That's his name.
It's like, fuck. That's one of those ones where Bruce says you got to be careful what you say in front of Vince because sometimes he takes you seriously.
He'll get an idea.
Yeah, exactly. So funny. But yeah, that was a good one. I thought Teddy sounded great. What an awesome promo.
Yeah. I ran into him a few years back at a wrestling convention, and it was so good to see him, and we chatted. And I never forget one time, I guess it was after a show in, I would guess it was Georgia or somewhere, that we hung out afterwards at somebody's house. There was a party, and Smoke was definitely he was always smoking, always.
Yeah.
And I think Sid was at that show too, that party too, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, yeah, Teddy had some good weed back then.
Yeah, and you guys hung from time to time.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's cool that he remembered you. I never know who will or won't, just because, for one, you don't see these guys for 30 years. They're not 30, but 15, 20.
Well, yeah, close to 30. I mean, if you look at it, yeah. Like Ricky Steamboat didn't remember who the hell I was.
Yeah.
And I did a lot with him.
Yeah. But they all go through so much. They have these, the not that everyone goes through head trauma, but their lives are such chaos for so many years just because of the travel in general. Like, even if you're sober, there's a lot of just probably sleepless hours that make your brain foggy anyways. Like, so it's always cool when they see you and remember and reminisce.
Yeah. And Jake thought I died. So when he saw me, I thought you were dead.
He could have been more excited to find out you weren't. He didn't have to sound upset about that.
Yeah, it seemed like he was upset.
Yeah.
He's still here.
Yeah. Fuck.
Got a lot of my secrets.
Yeah. He kept all those tapes and the other tapes.
Yeah. I should have kept the good tape. Should have never gave it to him. Taffy dick.
I'm going to need this one back.
It's in the book.
Yep. You did mention that, and you'll probably have to. I'm going to do a cut right there. You did mention, and just for clarity's sake, that Lex Luger snubbed you when you tried to interview him, and that he grabbed you by the throat, and that he said you don't want to talk to anybody. Right. I'm assuming that was kayfabe because he turned heel?
Yeah, totally. Well, he didn't like me anyway. Just for whatever reason, you could tell when someone doesn't want to have anything to do with you. And that's what I felt when I tried to interview him that night.
Did Lex really grab you by the throat?
No.
Okay, but you wanted an interview. He was like, eh.
No.
And so you thought, he doesn't want to do the interview. I'm going to play it up.
And I was trying to press it a little bit, and he gave me a look, but he didn't put his hands on me. No.
I didn't know if you even really talked to him much other than just give him ask if he wants to. He said no, and then you made up a story because he's heel. So,
right. You got it.
Yeah.
See,
Why not?
know.
You're working radio. And you're helping.
It's theater of the mind.
Yeah. You do say you're going to get an interview with Terry Funk like in a week or two?
I had taped it already. I just didn't play it because it was so fucking good that I had to make it do a standalone because it was like, and we'll be playing it in the next week or two. But it was a classic. It's one of my favorite interviews.
Goes off on Flair, right?
Yeah, so all I did was do the introduction, and then he just went off, nose to nose with me, and I was literally like, this fucking guy's nuts."
That's awesome.
And I think I said maybe 2 lines in the whole thing, but it was great.
We'll have to see how much we can even play.
You play the whole thing.
Yeah. Just
You
one
got to play the whole
rambling
thing.
stop.
That one is like it's about 5 minutes, 6 minutes, but for the
that's not
next whenever it comes to it, that fucking interview, you don't want to miss a word of that.
Yeah. You did say though that he but he recorded a promo for you, so the Spotlight promo.
Yes,
But he wouldn't do the interview, not until later. So I'm assuming he did the promo and then the interview, or did he do the interview
Yeah.
and then say, "Yeah, I'll cut you a promo"?
We cut the promo after the interview,
That's so fun. That's awesome.
so it's already been
Love
done.
it.
So I was working the audience again.
I got worked. You worked me. Also,
Yeah.
like, man, I wonder if Terry just didn't have enough time for a full interview and said, "Hey, I'll give you the thing and see you next time."
No, it was Philadelphia. Where it was that Philadelphia show where I got the interview.
It wasn't even the New Haven show.
Nope, it was a Philly show the day after. There was no bus to Philly. I just went.
You're such a worker, John. Kayfabing me left and right here. When you went to the New Haven show, as a side note,
You're asking questions. I'm answering them honestly.
yeah. But I'm saying, as I'm listening to these things, I'm going like, "Oh, this is trying to make
like
sense
back
of it
then,
all."
I was working everybody. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I missed my calling.
You were a hell of a manager.
Oh man.
When you went to the New Haven show, you always had an easy time getting in the back of NWA, correct?
Yeah, until the show started becoming more of a shoot.
Yes. Okay. Who
In
was
the
it that
beginning days, I
primarily
was
let you
putting
in?
them over.
Yeah.
The Gary Juster was the promoter, so and I get in because I go with George, and we just walk in.
Yeah. And so then by the time you went without George, they already recognized you, and here's the guy who walks in.
Yeah, the guy. Yeah.
Okay. I just want a little context there for any listeners who are new or anything, and
Yeah.
why is it you're backstage and getting all these interviews, but not the other guys? Well, these ones were, like you said,
And
a lot
because
more
they all
involved.
knew that I was putting the NWA over on my radio show every week.
Yeah.
And even though they didn't know that, the station could only be heard by, a few hundred people at NYG, I was putting the NWA over every day because I genuinely believed that their product was superior. It was more believable. And for me, as not only a radio host at the time, but a fan, I loved what they were doing that summer. I thought it was the best summer, like probably the best summer. And there was little that I enjoyed more than that summer of wrestling.
And here's an
'Cause it was
interesting
so good.
tidbit because it comes up. The Ding Dongs were already around.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought Ding Dongs were a Jim Herd creation.
Well, he had to be in place at the time. He was in place at the time. Yeah.
In '89, he was doing it?
Yeah, he was just getting in, really.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Because
So
he's the
there
guy
was
that
a
got
big-
rid of Steamboat.
Yes. Okay. So there was a chunk of time that with Jim Herd, the product was still really good. They were starting to get goofy, but they were still really good.
It was a
At least for a
battle.
window.
It was a battle. It was that time where they had that booking committee and Flair was leading it, and then Hurd started taking more control and wanting to make it more WWF like, and that's when he started coming up with these stupid gimmicks.
Well, he was trying the Ding Dongs, and they let that slide through. The committee let the Ding Dongs in.
He let the ding dongs in.
Yeah. I love later on when you grill Jim Herd about it, that he was like, "You don't understand. The bells were supposed to be bigger." Like, that's better. Although the idea that they would ring the thing, confusing the opponent to think the match was over, is fucking funny to me.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get into some of your callers.
Okay.
Mark from Seaford calls in.
Mark from
And here's the other deal.
Seaford.
A good chunk of your callers this one were all on the bus trip.
Yes.
They all wanted to call in and promote your bus trip and ask when's the next
All
one.
my
and tell
listeners
everyone
were
your
on the bus
listeners.
trip. All my listeners were on the bus trip.
It's not coincidence
My
that
entire
only the bus
audience
trip
was
people
on
called
one
in.
Yes.
There's no coincidence. It was just happened to be 100% of my listenership.
Yeah, that's it. You had a great turnout. Great percentage of our listeners showed up.
A phone call, Mark from Seaford. You're on the air.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed that trip. You put together one hell of a trip to New Haven.
Well, I enjoyed just meeting a lot of the listeners that listen to the show each week. We had a party on the way and back. Got to know each other a little bit. And I think everybody who was on the bus trip had a good time.
I'm definitely, looking forward to going on the next one, the Baltimore.
The Baltimore trip is being set now. We'll have all the information. We're going to start taking reservations immediately for that, but we'll have the information next week as far as the cost factor. It probably would be in the same price range as the trip, but just depending on what the tickets are going for. We want to get the best seats as possible, and we also want to find out how much the bus is going to be because it is a bit of a longer trip. But it's going to be a big show. They have matches announced already. A street fight between Jim Cornette and Paulie Dangerously. That's going to take place at that big show. Also, we got a scoop from Eddie Gilbert, who his opponent's going to be. We're going to let you know about that later on. Other matches are being signed as we speak. We'll have more of that lineup next week, and we hope to have you out there, Mark.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting, and all I got to say is those of you who didn't attend the bus trip, definitely come on this one because we all had a good time.
Well, we also want to thank the NWA. We want to thank Gary Juster, the promoter for New Haven. He's going to start running shows up here. He's running shows in Rhode Island, Boston. We're going to be taking more bus trips. And I also want to thank Elliot Murdoch, the promoter in Philadelphia, for the cooperation extended to us and Gary once again for the seats provided for the Pro Wrestling Spotlight listeners.
Okay, John, take care.
Okay, thanks for your call.
Bye-bye.
661-1440 is the number to call here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. We're going to take a commercial break and listen to Terry Funk right now.
On a tape.
I don't know what that last piece was on a
It
tape.
didn't work. You wanted to play. So tell me about how your broadcasting works. Did you play the music or did Bruce play the music? The outro music.
Rob Leonard was the engineer.
Leonard. They would play the music.
All of the, yeah.
And then they would play the tape over top of it. There was two different tracks playing at the same time. Or did your promos have the music beneath it already?
My promos had the music underneath already.
Are you
they
sure?
Play a cart.
How did they play the music without the promo then?
I mean, they had a music bed that they play for music beds. And then when I did a promo, like with Terry Funk or whatever it may be, when I'd record it and I did that post-production, I'd just give them the actual cart. It was like, it looked like an 8-track.
Mm-hmm.
You'd record it in the studio, in the production studio, put it on a cart, and then give the carts. I'd line them up like, this is cart number 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the order that they should be played in.
Mm-hmm.
So they were already kind of pre-produced for them.
Right, but the music bed was separate.
The music bed was separate.
Yeah. Because it sounded like they're playing the music bed, and then they go to play the tape, but instead of playing the tape, your mic turns back on, and you're like, it's on the tape. And then it cuts back to the music bed.
Yeah.
Which cracked me up.
Well, it cracked me up just hearing it.
But also another one of those insights of like, oh, that's how they're doing it. They're playing two separate tracks at the same time. But yeah, I cracked up because the Terry Funk thing didn't work. You address it on the other side of the ad as you get to TJ from Deer Park. TJ.
Yes, Thomas Brown.
Yeah, tell me a little about him because he becomes a little bit of a star on this one.
Yeah, he was just a college kid, about to go to college. He was just, I guess, graduating high school, and he was kind of a very affable fan who had a lot of enthusiasm, and we just kind of took a liking to him because he was kind of cool. He was a cool guy.
Was he a young guy? Like, was he a teenager?
He was a young guy. He was just out of out of high school on his way to college. So he became one of our favorite calls because he was just kind of normal. You know?
He was kind of what?
Normal.
Normal.
Like there were a lot of fans that were not quite right.
Yeah.
Hence Joey from Babylon. You know, there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
But he was kind of like, he's kind of cool. And then we all kind of used to start getting together. And I actually had a reunion with him, not, a few years back with Vinny from West Babylon and Richard Nieves, the photographer. And we're friends to this day. I mean, he still follows wrestling. He goes to all the AEW shows in the local area. Always sits in the front row. He has a hat on all the time. He's always right in the middle of the front row.
Really?
Yeah, and he does his own podcast. He's got a Bleacher Creature, a very popular Yankees podcast called the Bleacher Creatures. And he posts on Facebook every day him drinking a different beer with his brother-in-law. He's had pictures of him and his brother-in-law in these T-shirts. They just stand there looking at the camera, and it's like he posts these pictures like constantly of just him and his brother-in-law. And he just takes pictures of all these beers, these different brands of beers. He's so cool. He's cool to this day.
Yeah. That's cool. That makes me like him even more because he was You don't? Why was he called TJ?
I guess that was his nickname back then. He's the one that announced himself as TJ from Deer Park. Maybe it was like Thomas John or something. Yeah. Or maybe that was his, whatever. But his name was Thomas Brown.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll get to that promo with Funk. Had some technical difficulties for a second, but we'll play it before the show is out for sure. Let's take a call at 661-1440. TJ from Deer Park.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing real good. The trip was excellent. Much to the dismay of everybody, I got my voice back, finally.
Yeah, that's definitely to the dismay of the folks that were on the bus.
We had a great time, I'm telling you. Everybody who can have an opportunity to go next time really should go, because if you're a big wrestling fan, you can't have more fun.
Well, it's just, it's a unique concept, and it's just a lot of fans getting on board, everyone enjoying themselves, and seeing some excellent wrestling with the Great American Bash. The NWA is pulling out all the stops, trying to really break into the Northeast, and they're really promoting up here now. We found out more places they're coming up. They're going to New Hampshire. They're going to Rhode Island. They're talking to the Coliseum again, I understand, here in Long Island for maybe an October or November show. Mm-hmm. So the NWA definitely pulling out the stops, and hopefully with some of the feuds that are developing, if Flair comes back, he'll make the announcement this coming Saturday. Him and Funk will be tremendous. Luger now looking to capture the NWA World title. We got some exciting wrestling up ahead.
On the subject of the NWA, what I wanted to do was talk about Eddie Gilbert, because personally what I see happening to him, I think he's going to go back to the bad side very soon, because he's kind of fallen out of the spotlight. He's getting pinned by the Great Muta all over the country. You can sell advertising space on the bottom of his boots. He's getting pinned so often.
Eddie Gilbert, as you know, Eddie Gilbert was also a manager. He managed Sting at one time.
What I was going to say is, now he's not even in the picture, even with the Steiners. He's hanging out with the Steiners.
All right, TJ, cool it for a second.
I'm losing my patience.
I know you're a little upset. I know you get a little excited when you're on the show, but we have an exclusive interview with Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert on today's show, and all your questions and your comments and thoughts will probably be answered during this interview, because he has a lot to say about his future and what's going to be coming up for him with the First Family, and some interesting comments by Gilbert.
And before I go, Jack Victory, I want to talk about him. It looks like every couple of days he's changing his gimmick. First he was a Russian assassin, then he was Secret Service Jack Victory, dressing in a costume that made him look like a human tent, and then now he's
trying to find his niche. He's trying to find what's going to work for him.
I got a good gimmick for Jack Victory.
What's
How about Jack Victory?
I was going to call him the Ding Dong number 3.
Yeah, by the way, I heard a good rumor. The Ding Dongs are working for the NWA. They got a contract, $50,000 to wrestle in the NWA. Where they came up with that money to buy Ted Turner, I have no idea.
Well, we'll call him. How about if you try to get a hold of Mr. Turner and get him on the show for next week?
How about I get a hold of Mr. Turner and put him in a bag and he can't get out? You got to get rid of that kind of stuff. All right, Johnny.
Okay,
I want to say that the fans down on the bus trip were great. Broadway, he rules, and it was a good idea, John.
All right,
do it again.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, no problem.
He had that Donnie Libel type enthusiasm.
A lot of energy.
Yeah.
DJ, cool it. I'm getting all fired up.
Yeah, he was a hit on the bus trip, because he was definitely very excited to be there.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, especially at that point too. I can only imagine if I was just getting out of high school. That's kind of like right around peak fandom kind of era for me. Yeah. If I was calling into a radio show and then did a bus trip with that dude, and then when you call him, he knows, you're like, I'd be hyped. Like, that'd be the most exciting thing. Especially, I don't know what it was like for you or anyone else out there, but I know growing up as a wrestling fan, I only encountered like 2 or 3 ever in school. You know, like no one wanted to sit and talk wrestling with me. Yeah. So that would have been thrilling.
I was looked upon as an outcast in high school because I was a wrestling fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. 100%. I mean, I won't go into some of the stories, but
even in college, it opened my eyes in college when I started Pro Wrestling Spotlight at the college station. I discovered that my college buddies were all kind of closet wrestling fans. They all knew about it, and they all commented on it, and they'd call my college radio show. And then it was kind of like this group thing. We'd get together on Saturday mornings and watch it on local Boston television. We'd go into the lobby of the dorm where there were, TVs and stuff, and we'd watch fucking wrestling on Saturday mornings. And then that one day I surprised them, and we put on wrestling, and there I was wrestling Dusty Rhodes.
You're like, let's just watch this one. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. They were fucking freaking out. A lot of my friends.
Also, that's when you were in college. That's when you were in Boston. So yeah, out of Boston.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, that leads us perfectly into, this is the clip from the bus trip. So this is a little bit longer of a clip. But
it's going to be fun.
I couldn't not squeeze in, because I was trying to find like the right little thing. The beginning is so good because it's crazy, and the ending I couldn't not keep in the clip. So there is a little bit of a quiet response to one that probably could have gone, but like it's a little longer because the end of this clip is so good.
Good. Let's hear it.
All right, we did have such a great time in New Haven the other night. What we're going to do now is play a little bus trip banter. Now, we had a total group of lunatics on board the bus. Everyone was having a good time. Right after, on the way back from New Haven, I turned the microphone over to Bruce, and he did some short interviews with some of the people there. So let's enjoy this bus trip banter from New Haven.
All right, everybody. Quiet down, quiet down. We're on our way back to New York. We just finished attending a spectacular card of wrestling at the New Haven Coliseum, on tour, the Great American Bash with the NWA. And I'm going to turn this over to Bruce so I can get a little sleep. And he'll interview some of the fans who attended this bus trip and give us their opinions on what they saw tonight at the New Haven Coliseum. Bruce, take it away. It's all yours.
All right, John, we're going to do some post-match interviews. And let's speak to this man from St. Louis. He came all the way from St. Louis to see these matches. Sir, your name?
My name is Sam White. I'm Brad Burns' grandpa, and I think this crowd I'm with tonight is very enjoyable, and the evening was beautiful. The matches that we saw were very enjoyable, and this is one small hell of a good evening.
All right. Way to go. All right. Let's go to the back of the bus. We'll start at the back. Your name, sir?
I'm Mark from Seaford.
Mark, what was the best match tonight, Mark?
I liked the Road Warrior match. The only thing was it was kind of short for me.
What did you think of the championship match between Luger and Steamboat?
Well, once you've seen one championship match, you've seen them all.
Trying to say there was no innovation in that match?
I didn't think there was any innovation between the two, although I think that Luger was a better showman than Steamboat, but I don't like his gimmick with his wife and his kid.
Your name?
I'm Jim from Hopper.
Jim, the best match tonight?
Well, I was upset that the Ding Dongs weren't there, but I think the Road Warrior match was the best one myself.
The Ding Dongs?
Yeah. Them guys are great. I think they could take the title, don't you?
Jim is the leader of the Ding Dong fan club.
Hey!
Your name, sir?
Insane James.
Insane James. Where are you from, James?
Seaford.
James, the best match tonight?
Freebirds. Bam Bam beating the hell out of everybody.
What did everybody think of that Battle Royal? How about the finish of the Battle Royal? Your name?
Mike from Seaford.
Mike, what'd you think of the best match tonight?
I thought the Freebird match was the best match tonight. Battle Royal I thought was disappointing.
And the championship match?
All right.
All right.
Yeah, all right.
This is the man right here, TJ from Deer Park. TJ, you're a maniac.
Thank you, sir. From now on, I'd like you to refer to me as TJ the Great from Deer Park. The match tonight was the Freebirds. Any match with the Freebirds is a good one. Freebirds are the team of the 80s and the team of the 90s. And what was I going to say about the championship match? It was a decent match. It's good to see Luger and Steamboat going at each other. And Luger, by far, is much better as a villain. And he carried the match, in my opinion.
Well, all I know, TJ, is it looked at one time that Funk was coming after you for some of those lewd remarks you were making.
Well, my lewd remarks were towards Sting. Terry Funk is a man on my side of the spectrum.
Needless to say, TJ's a little cracked. Adam from Long Beach.
How you doing? I thought the best match was the championship match. Luger performed real well in the match.
What do you mean real well?
Well, he put on a good show. Steamboat wasn't that great, but Luger was able to carry him through.
Here's Brad from Long Beach, and Brad, the best match tonight.
Had to be the Freebirds. Any match with the Freebirds is the best match. And as far as the championship match goes, well, Luger works real well as a villain. I mean, you gotta hand it to Steamboat. Goes out there, tries his hardest, but can't get over. So I gotta say that, Luger's good, but definitely the best match was the Freebird match.
What did you think of the Battle Royal?
Well, it was decent, but the ending, when Funk came in, laid that rod on the back of Sting's head, definitely great show stealer.
By the way, I want to say that Adam and Brad have a publication, Between the Ropes. It's only $1. And it's a good publication. Well worth the reading. Here's my man, Nick from Massapequa.
Nick.
Yeah, how you doing, all right?
How you doing, Nick?
Good. All right, best match tonight was definitely the Freebirds. I had to agree with everybody on that because all of the participants were really giving their all, especially those Steiner brothers. I just can't say enough good about them because they do all their moves really solidly, and I'm telling you, I mean, Terry, and how can you say about Terry Gordy that hasn't been said already? I mean, so there's other stuff tonight that I found interesting is that the Dynamic Dudes really improved their performance. I think they're really starting to come together as a team, and hopefully we'll make a run of that Freebird Tag Team title. And also, I was a little disappointed in the great Muda match because the thing was Muda and Gilbert are such great wrestlers. And the thing was, Muda's been hurt a little bit. He's had his knee problems, but I'm thinking hopefully that he'll get back into form really soon because I just can't. It's just so great what Muda's been doing on this Great American Bash tour.
Nick, is there anything you don't know about wrestling?
No.
Your name, sir?
Scott from Lyndhurst.
This is your brother Alan?
Well, as the majority, I figured the Freebird match was definitely the best match of the evening.
What about you, Alan?
I thought the Lex Luger Rick Steamboat match was really exciting.
How'd you like that Battle Royal?
Battle Royal was really nice. I like the way, when the people got eliminated, they went to the second Battle Royal, and automatically started wrestling each other. I thought it was going to stop and keep going.
So did you have a good time tonight?
Yeah, it was really worth the money.
There he is, Broadway, Sonny Blaze.
Give me a microphone, man. You've said enough. I gotta have a talk with John. I don't know what happened to my private car, but I'm stuck on this bus with this psychotic nut, TJ. Hey, shut up. Sorry, Bruce. Great card.
Well, how about your lovely girlfriend, Cindy, over here? Funk wanted to challenge him, Cindy. You were trying to throw him in the ring. Tell us.
He walked away when I got down to ringside, didn't he?
That's right. He was scared.
Broadway. I took my time.
And of course, Donna, whose sandwiches we didn't get, but that's okay.
I like the Freebirds and Ricky Steamboat. That's all.
That's it. Did you have a good time tonight?
I had the best time of my life.
That's saying something, folks. That is saying something.
Donna Donna had the best time of her life.
Yeah,
you gotta go to these.
I think I'll ask her next time I see her. Was that really the best time of your life?
Yeah. To date.
I think I even took her to the ECW arena once on one of those bus trips. I think she went to one of those crazy shows later on.
During early ECW, like when it was still Eddie Gilbert and stuff?
I don't remember, but I know she was at a Philadelphia ECW show once.
At least one. Yeah. That's cool. But yeah, that was just funny. I like Bruce doing the interview. I like how you said Bruce is going to do it because you want to go get some sleep. Like you're going to be sleeping in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I had enough.
And it sounds like you guys were following Teddy and Norman in the bus?
I think we might have. I think we might even. I don't know if this trip or another trip we actually went into a rest stop and we saw a bunch of the guys in the McDonald's. Yeah. But I don't know on this one if we were following. We might have seen them on the highway. Who the hell knows?
No, I mean, you bring it up in the thing that you guys are following them back or something, and you mention it later on too. You're like, "Oh yeah, we followed Norman and Theodore," and I was like, "What?" Right after you play him yelling at you, we need help getting back.
I wanted to finish the interview.
Yeah. But that was awesome. Bruce, Sonny, Donna.
TJ, Seaford, Mark from Seaford, Crazy Jim from Seaford, and a bunch of other
TJ the Great.
TJ the Great.
That made me laugh because when he called in, he didn't say it's TJ the Great from Deer Park.
No.
But just the night before, he said, "Call me TJ the Great from now on."
Right. I guess I forgot.
So did he. Jim, was it Hogpog? What is that place?
Hauppauge.
Hauppauge.
Yeah, it's a town out on the east end of Long Island.
Yeah. All right.
A lot of Long Island towns were named after like Indians.
Oh.
I mean, I'm Native Americans. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Native Long Islands.
Yeah.
Long Islanders. Yeah, he calls in later on too. So yeah. Oh, and the Power Twins call in. I don't think I even kept that.
That's fine. They could actually
maybe it's on this other one
on Patreon.
Well, I got the caller right after, and so I wonder if I attached it to that and forgot because, yeah, the Power Twins call in and they sound drunk to me.
They're big Mets fans, though.
Yeah,
they always send me like when the Mets lose. David always sends me a picture of Mr. Met putting his head in an oven. Or hanging himself.
Yeah.
They love the Mets.
He's had enough. Well, let's see if this is them. This is Ken calling in.
Okay.
Ken from Amityville.
Ken Polvedetti.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is well after the Power Twins, so I didn't keep the Power Twins call.
Thank God.
Yeah. You'll have to catch that one on the Patreon.
Yes. Go there right now.
It is funny, too, because when they come on, too, they're like, "Who am I talking to?" And they're like, "John," and they start razzing you, and then they go, "Wait, are we on the air?" It's like, you called the radio station, dude. Of course he's on there. Here's Ken from Amityville.
Yeah, with Ken from Amityville? Are you there?
John?
Yes. Are you there?
Yeah.
Good. Wake up. How you doing?
Fine. I wanted to ask you,
I have a question for you first.
Did you see Barry Windham on,
No, I did not see him, but I have a question for you.
Yes?
Are you the Maniac by any chance?
The who?
The Maniac?
Who's the Maniac?
I heard that's one of the names that you use occasionally.
The Maniac?
Yeah. I guess it's not true. All right, good. Go ahead. Ask me your question.
Ken, I don't know.
What do you want? You want to know if I saw Barry Windham?
Yeah.
The Widowmaker? No, I missed that yesterday. I missed TV wrestling yesterday, WWF style. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw him. The match was short, but he looked, I guess, the same amount of, his moves that he usually does, and he did finish off the guy with the superplex.
He did, so he did look all right then.
Yeah, but as the Widowmaker, seeing Barry Windham wrestle as the Widowmaker and stuff like that, it just kind of ruined it for me, you know what I mean?
Well, Barry made his move. He's in the WWF now. I understand he just signed a series of matches with Dusty Rhodes, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and
I have to disagree with Kevin.
Is Broadway there?
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, go ahead, Broadway. He's here, yes.
Broadway?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something. I was just wondering, about, what do you, what's your record in wrestling that you've won and lost in wrestling?
My record is exactly at 500 right now.
Really?
I've won half my matches. I've lost half my matches. All the losses I attained, I lost by clean pinfall. But under the advisement of John Anthony so far, I'm undefeated.
Mm-hmm. And,
But I want to say, I disagree with you with the Barry Windham thing.
What?
I think he hasn't changed it. Okay, they're calling him the Widowmaker, which might be a little silly, but he hasn't changed his wrestling. He's not a cartoon character, and he's wrestling as good as ever.
Yeah, but I think he's going to become a cartoon character anyway, soon.
He might do like those promos like Dusty Rhodes does, as a cartoon character, but his wrestling will never change. He wrestled in the WWF before.
And he was always a top contender in the NWA, so I'm sure that his wrestling abilities are not going to be tarnished at all. But only time will tell, and I think Barry's going to do very well in the WWF. He's added class to the organization.
Well, just in a couple months, I bet you're going to find out he's just going to be called the Widowmaker, no more Barry Windham.
Well, we already understand that. Yeah, we understand that he's decided to use the Widowmaker as his official name. I don't understand why, but that's the decision that's been made.
Yeah, and also, I wanted to ask Broadway, who's some of your favorite wrestlers right now?
Right now, Ric Flair, without a doubt, but I'm starting to really admire Sting a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when we came back from the bus trip, I tuned into the NWA Wrestling on Channel 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I saw this, I read about this guy, but I never saw him before. Sid Vicious?
Yeah.
My God, he's huge.
Yeah. I think he's going to be teaming up with Dan Spivey upcoming.
That's going to be something.
All right, listen, Ken, thanks for your call.
Yeah, okay, bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Barry Windham, the Widowmaker, which obviously it was, he had to use that name because he wouldn't have had a job.
Yeah. Sonny Blaze with a 50-50 record right now.
50-50, it was all under my guidance and tutelage, of course. I was advising that young man the right way back then. But I think that was a fictitious 50-50. Because I rarely
he
remember
had to have won
winning.
a couple matches.
Won a few on
He
the
had
indie
to have,
circuit.
though.
Yeah.
Especially, I know this sounds weird, but I'm thinking if you're a jobber enhancement talent on TV, which he hasn't gotten there yet.
No.
Then on the indie scene, they'll probably let you have wins because you're on TV, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know how many indie shows he did while he was doing WWE enhancement work. I know he did work with me in '93 at my convention, but I don't know how many indie shows he did. He might have done more than I was aware of.
I'll have to ask him next time what it was like then, because obviously now they're very strict on what you can and can't do, but I wonder if back then with enhancement talent if they didn't care or not. All right, John, this next one's still a little bit longer just because it was too good to not clip into half, but it's Cornette and Paulie together. This one's another about 7-minute one that we'll go through, but this angle that they're putting together was awesome, and the way that they both played through this.
Yes, it was
great.
It was brilliant with the two brilliant minds that they both have.
Now, we had interviewed Jim and Paulie. Now, this is what happened during the interview that I had with Jim Cornette 2 nights ago in New Haven, Connecticut. We were talking to him. In the middle of our conversation, Paulie ran out of the dressing room and grabbed the microphone and threw the tape recorder down on the floor. You'll hear it as it happens. And right now, let's go to my interview with Jim Cornette. Then we're going to speak to Paulie Dangerously about the whole situation. Thanks a lot. On tour with the Great American Bash, John Anthony from the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, here with one of the most colorful wrestling managers in the history of the sport, Jim Cornette. Jim, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing just fine, and of course I'm still colorful, as you can see from my tie. Golly, color just dripping, oozing from my body at this very moment in time.
Well, on a somber note here, you had some rough luck at the Clash 7. Everyone had picked the Midnight Express once they had gotten that close to win the titles. Paulie Dangerously with that vicious sneak attack. This guy just keeps coming after you.
Well, Paulie Dangerously is a sneak. Paulie's a coward. Paulie wouldn't even come up to me. I've never beaten anybody in my life. He wouldn't even come up to me to my face. He had to do it from behind. That shows you what kind of guy Paulie Dangerously is. We would have had the Free Birds. We had him in the final match. If we would have had him, we would have taken the World Tag Team Championship. If it hadn't been for Paulie coming behind, knocking me out with that loaded tennis racket. He can't even think of his own weapons, for heaven's sake. He's got to steal stuff I've been doing for years. He's a cheap imitation of me is all he is. So then, as a result, I was knocked out. I wasn't able to be at ringside. Terry Gordy, the third Freebird, was at ringside. Now, of course, I can't match up to Terry Gordy.
Well, you couldn't watch your boys back.
If I'd have been there just to yell, look out at the right minute, the whole result of the thing would have been different. So Paulie, I think, cost us the World Tag Team Championship, but I blame myself because I should have got rid of the Geek a long time before now. So I went to the NWA and I asked him for a match. Not even a match, a fight. We can't wrestle. We're going to fight each other. One time, July 23rd in Baltimore at the Great American...
That's already been said.
It's already been signed on. It's going to be on pay-per-view television all across the country. It's one fall, anything goes, brother. A fight between me and Paulie Dangerously, and once and for all, I'm going to give him the beating he's had coming for about 6-8 months now.
Well, it's going to be an interesting fight, to say the least. I'm sure that the fans in Baltimore and the pay-per-view audience can look forward to that. Finally, you two in the ring alone.
Well, I think interesting is going to be the word, because obviously it's not going to be a classic wrestling match, and also obviously it ain't going to last long, but it's going to be real interesting while it does go on. And I'll tell you what, if, like I've said before, but it bears repeating, if there's one person in the world that I know that I can whip, it's got to be Paulie Dangerously.
Oh, here he is. He's coming right up. There was more after that.
Starting already.
Okay, let's go right back. Shut the tent.
I'm not starting yours.
Okay, shut the interview off for a minute. At that point in the interview, Paulie Dangerously took the tape recorder and he dropped it. That's what had happened. And then Cornette ran. He didn't run away. He just said, Paulie, that's it. You wasted my time here. It was my interview. He left. I got Paulie in the side. I took him in a closet, as a matter of fact, to get him away from everybody. And I talked to him about the whole situation. Now, before we put on this interview with Paulie Dangerously, this is what happened. After this whole event took place, before I talked to Paulie, I challenged him to do a live debate on the air here with Jim Cornette via the telephone. Now, Paulie only agreed to do it via the telephone. They didn't want to do anything face-to-face because I think he's afraid of Cornette. And you're going to hear what happens right now with Paulie Dangerously.
All right, you're starting already.
We're here with Paulie Dangerously.
Hey, excuse me, I'm not starting. You're starting. You didn't do your homework. You want to be Mr. Mike Rollis over here. You want to be Rollin Smith. Let's get it right. It's the Great American Bash. Not the American Bash. Don't abbreviate things.
So you just want me to get my facts straight?
I want you to be a reporter. If you're going to be a reporter, you want to play Mr. Reporter now instead of driving a taxi, which is what you do 6 other days a week. That's fine with me.
It's a bus.
Oh, it's a bus.
Ever hear of Ralph Cramden?
Sure, you're about as heavy.
All right, let's go. Let's talk about what happened at the Clash of the Champ. Paulie Dangerously, the man with the tennis racket that's loaded with a horseshoe and chain.
That's Jim Cornette. I carry a telephone just because I wanted to show everybody that I can play Jim Cornette's game better than he can. Don't listen that I carry around a tennis racket. He carries around a tennis racket. You carry around a microphone. What kind of introduction is that? Paulie Dangerously. Come on. Well, a man of my caliber, the psycho yuppie, the manager basher himself, the man that put out Jim Cornette at the Clash of Champions, the man that put Paul Ellering in the hospital, Paul E. Dangerously.
Well, you didn't have very good luck that night anyhow.
How do you figure?
SST. They're not wearing the belts right now.
No, they're not. But who is? The Freebirds. Very good friends of mine.
Well, you did have a hand in that, to say the least.
I did. I stopped Jim Cornette, bottom line. I promised everybody on TV that I would not use my phone against Jim Cornette, and I didn't.
Now, what's happening July 23rd? Cornette just told me you guys are going to be in a street fight, pay-per-view audience. Now, what do you feel about this? Is this finally going to be the end of this feud?
Of course it is. This will be the night that I will be executed for what I have in store for Jim Cornette. Oh, they're going to execute me. I mean, it's a fact. I'm gonna hurt the man. I'm gonna hurt him real bad. I'm gonna take him out. When I say out, I mean out. I mean deep six. I'm not playing games anymore. He wants to finally put me in the ring one-on-one, something I've never been in my life. It's going to be the end of his career, and a little bit more than that.
Also, the SST now. What's your next plans for them?
My next plans for them is for the SST to go down in history as a team that spent their life behind bars for the execution of the Road Warriors. Bottom line. I mean, I'm not here to play games, you know.
Right, apparently you've been getting more vicious as weeks progress.
Yeah, you know, I've been reading all these letters in the trade papers. I've been reading all these letters in the magazines. Oh, we used to like Paulie Dangerously when he was on ESPN. Oh, we used to like Paulie Dangerously when he was on FNN. For he was so funny. He was like Roddy Piper. I'm not here to make you laugh.
Apparently not. You've been vicious. You've turned vicious. Now you're going.
Money. You know, when you work for a joke of an organization, tell jokes. When you work for serious money, you stay serious. That's all there is to it.
All right, Paulie. One last thing. What we're going to try to do before the Great American Bash-In. See, I've been studying now. We'd like to get you and Jim Cornette maybe in a debate. Would you go for something like that on the radio?
Like face to face.
Yeah, like face to face.
Would he be in the same room with me?
No, either live or via the telephone.
Of course. I'd have no objection to it.
Well, you don't want to see him face to face live in the studio?
I'm afraid I'll have to jump across that table and wipe that snotty little smile right off his face.
And then the fans at the pay-per-view won't be able to see it then.
That's right, and I don't want to cost myself that kind of money because I want that big payday at the pay-per-view. I'd be afraid to be in the same room with Jim Cornette because I'd end his life. I would. And I don't want to do that before the pay-per-view.
All right, Paulie, thanks for your time.
You wouldn't be face to face. You wouldn't do that to me now, would you?
Well, we'll have to talk to the owners of the station to see what's going to happen.
No, if he's in the same room, forget it.
Sounds like a little fear here to me.
What are you doing? Turn it off!
He didn't think the microphone was on. He did not want to come live face to face. He sounded very fearful. Once he found out the microphone was still on, he screamed that I shut it off.
Yeah. Angle.
So good. And it's so good too. Paul's so good that he knows that if all you're going to do is hear it, that you need to hear his facial expressions. And he talked that way on purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I mean, he paints a really good picture. Yeah, that was fun because we had talked about it before I started with Cornette. And so, they went along with this little tiny angle and then literally Paulie grabbed me and we walked towards a closet area or something. And that's where I did his interview.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool. I mean, those are two of my favorite guys, man. I'm like, just the fact that I was in 1989 able to talk to them both, simultaneously. It was kind of cool. It's the first time that we've ever did that. And the only time I think them two together like that.
Do you recall watching them like talk about what they were going to do in a way, like watching them like mix ideas
for this interview
or anything?
No, I've never really seen them kind of, collaborate on any idea or angle or talk about a match backstage. On this thing, it was just kind of like, oh, let's just do this. Why don't we do this? All right, I'll start it off, and then Paul, you jump in, and that was the way it was done.
Straightforward. That's cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Fun.
Really neat too.
It was a busy night.
You already had 30 interviews under your belt.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was loving doing that stuff, even though it was like, such a early phase of the show. I mean, literally, we're still been only on the air for 12 weeks. So that's only 3 months. And the fact that even though it's all kayfabe and storyline based, and I was having fun with it. It was kind of this innocent time period before everything else happened later on.
Yeah.
Golden era.
Yeah. Like I don't have a lot to add on it just because I think it stands alone so good. And just like you said, you being able to be in the middle of that for at least part of this story, it's really cool.
Yeah. It was a great summer too. That's why I really loved interviewing it and being kind of a small, tiny little part of it, that I could bring it to a small, tiny little audience on Long Island. It was a very special time in my memories of this whole show.
That's true too. The fact that you have a Long Island bubble, the payoff show, the big event, that wasn't going to be in Long Island, was it?
It was in Baltimore. The Great American Bash, the big show. Yeah. I was not there live. So I don't know what happened with the bus trip, or because I do remember, because I was on the air, which we'll cover. I was on the air for that. And I don't know, I think I left the studio and went home and then called in the second half of the show, watching the show, like watching the pay-per-view while I was on the air. So, it was kind of, I can't wait to get to it because I don't really remember all of it, but it's kind of bizarre that that, or either that or I watched the great. I know what would happen. I started off calling in the show because I was watching the pay-per-view. And then when the show ended, we ran to the station and did the second half of the show from the studio after watching the pay-per-view on the air. That's what we did.
So first off, that might be the first documented watch along.
It could have been.
It might. Hey, 89 is pretty early to be doing a live radio broadcast watch along that's not official commentary.
I think how we handled it is that while I was watching the show from home, I had Rob, the engineer, play all of these Great American Bash interviews. And then we ran to the studio and went live after the show was over. So now that I'm like, just like, all the interviews, like the Freebirds, Terry Funk, all of that, it was like we were playing them back to back on the radio while the show was going on live, where I was home watching it with Bruce. And then as soon as that match concluded, in the aftermath of that brawl, then we ran to the station, which is, like I said, a mile away. So we jumped in the car and we were within 5 minutes, and boom, we were on the air for the second half of the show. Jeez. That'll be a nice one.
Let's go to commercial. I'm on my way.
Yeah, exactly.
So good. So, all right. Well, I'm excited to see that. It may be the first watch along ever. Before things were even called watch alongs. But after this, you get Donnie on the phone for a long time. It's really cool. You guys go over all the Great American Bash stuff. But to me, the big highlight in there for the Patreons who get to hear the whole thing is Donnie started out with almost like this little article he had written, which is kind of how he does everything, about women's wrestling and the state of women's wrestling and what he thinks that it should be and could be.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant piece that could play today even, Yeah. So I recommend anyone listening or on the Patreon to listen to that.
It's very, from what you described, it's kind of really classic, like you said, and it could have been appropriate for even today's wrestling fan.
Yeah. Yeah. And Donnie was ahead of his time in so many ways. David Sammartino, you finally get him on. You've been saying you've been trying to get him on for like 2 months.
Yeah, since the beginning.
I imagine. Yeah. To me, the two big takeaways from this, because it's a rather long interview that we're not going to play too much, or not any of it really, but he says he's been wrestling for 10 years. He started training 10 years ago, and he's in his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
The impression I was getting as we led up to this interview in the last 12 episodes was that he just was starting out. He was just getting out there, and he was a really young guy. But that's kind of the older age.
He was on WrestleMania 1. He was on that show with Bruno managing him. In the very first WrestleMania, he was there. And then he had that altercation with a fan, and that's when he got fired.
And then that was that.
And Bruno said that was kind of a vindictive thing for Vince to do. And there were internal struggles between father and son, too. So there was a lot going on back then with David. And, 22 years old, 10 years ago, now like 32. He tried his hardest to be a presence in the business, but he had too many obstacles. There was that internal struggle with his dad. There was that thing that always kept coming back about, his physical altercation with a fan that he got fired for. And he just never got the break or the opportunity because that was his passion. That's what he wanted to do. And so it's kind of, at the end of the day, it's kind of a sad story.
Yeah. It's awful. It's terrible. Well, and then even in that amount of time, in those 10 years, he's never held a single championship. Also came out of that interview.
No, it's just kind of a sad story. We had when I was doing these Pro Wrestling Spotlight lives, it could have been during the pandemic. That I think they're still up on YouTube. That we actually had David on with Donnie years later. Yeah, and he looked good. He still looked good. Doggone it. But this was a good one, huh?
And but David was good as a good technical wrestler, was he not?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So, this was a good one. I want to play a final clip just as an out.
Okay.
You bring up the formation of ECW, and a caller calls in to talk specifically to Sonny Blaze, and so I feel like it's a nice little out.
You got it.
I just want to let you know some of the other names of promoters who have talked to me or contacting or in the process of contacting. I understand Broadway Sonny Blaze is also going to be appearing in this tournament. There will be a tournament for not only the heavyweight championship of the East Coast, but also the tag team championship. We got, understand the Power Twins obviously will be contacted. Promoters are talking to Pedro Morales, I understand, Ivan Koloff, Nikolai Volkov, and even possibly Bob Backlund. So there's going to be some interesting names upcoming, and we'll keep you informed of all the progress of this organization, ECW, as weeks progress here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. We're going to take a quick phone call first. Can we do that? Yeah, let's take a phone call first, and then we're going to go get some commercial breaks, and then we'll take a few more calls before we wrap it up this week. Yes, you're on the air.
Hello, John?
Yes.
This is Alan from Lyndhurst.
Hi, Alan. How you doing?
Hi. I was listening to before when the Power Twins called.
Yes.
And they said that Broadway ran out of the ring when they came to.
That was not true. I was there at that match at Battle Royal. Broadway was giving them some competition in there. They were going at it tooth and nail.
Well, the way home from the New Haven, which was very nice, I was sitting next to Broadway, Sonny Blaze.
He's a nice guy, isn't he?
Yeah, really.
Just don't get on his bad side.
And looking at him and seeing the Power Twins like a couple weeks ago on ICW, I think, like, with your management, he can really, like, put up a couple of single matches against them.
That would be interesting. Brother, why don't you take the question? Why don't you give your opinion of this after all Alan is talking about you?
First of all, you got to remember, David and Larry each have 50% of one human brain. So if I took one of them on without the other, they're not a complete wrestler. They need two people to win a match.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would welcome the opportunity to face either Larry or David in a singles match. There's no such thing as a singles match with them. They signed for a singles match. Larry comes out to ringside with David, jumps in the ring, boom, you got a gang.
Well, what you should do is try and get a good tag team partner. Maybe John again.
Oh, don't put me back in the ring. I've managed the Power Twins as well, so I'm here between a rock and a hard place. I just want the guys that I work with to win. If they fight each other, then that's a hard decision for me.
Also, Alan, remember, tag team wrestling is a very specialized form in this sport. You have to train to be a tag. You can't just pick another singles wrestler and go in the ring. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to work well together, and you have to develop strategies, tag team strategies.
All right. Thanks for
John?
Yes.
One more thing. I'd really like to thank you once again for that Road Warrior autograph.
Hey, no problem. The guys, I told them that you were a big fan of theirs. They had no problem signing it, and I just enjoy it, all right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.
We'll be back with a couple more calls, and we'll wrap it up right after this.
Yeah, I remember that. That kid was a big Road Warrior fan, and I got him autographed.
Were they at the show, the Road Warriors?
Yeah, they were on that show, New Haven.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah,
I was a nice guy back then, Marsh. I would have done the same thing for you as a young man that you were.
Oh, yeah, for sure, dude. I believe it. But, and I also like, because you can hear it in your voice that you're kind of like, not that you were trying to, like, you know, work anybody on it, but like the kid's like, thank you so much for that autograph. And he's like, yeah, it's cool. Have fun with it. Let's move on. Like, you didn't want to like talk about the scenario or how you did it or any of that. You just want to do something cool for that kid.
Yeah. It was nice, you know. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, you brighten somebody's day and give them a lifelong memory.
There's every possibility he still has that autograph.
I would believe so.
Yeah.
Who knows where all these people are 30-something years later. It's crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We know where Broadway is. We know where Donnie is. We know where the Power Twins are. We know where TJ is. We know where Vinny from West Babylon is. But where are the rest of them?
Where's Alan? But
this show had a bit of everything.
Yeah, this was a big one.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're back doing it, and you know, as we continue on this venture, and we just really appreciate the support of the fans, and we will continue as long as we can keep the roof over the heads of the production part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you haven't joined Patreon yet, patreon.com/John Arezzi. And it's $5, get you in. $15 get you all access. There are other levels. And unfortunately, we lost our executive producers.
We lost our executive producers?
Both of them. Hey, but Anthony's still there, but he lowered his tier, which is fine. He let me know first too, and I was like, listen, everything that you've done and how long you've stayed with this show, he's always going to be appreciated. He's a true believer.
He's awesome. Yeah.
So
Marsh, join the Patreon.
Yeah,
get that David San Martino interview.
Yeah,
the long-awaited.
We got really good stuff coming up in the next few weeks. We got that Terry Funk thing. We got who knows what else. I mean, this is a magical summer. This was before all the shit hit the fan, and then we, unfortunately, even though it's a couple years away, all those fucking scandals and everything else. But this WNYG first run at WNYG is always going to be magical to me because it was the innocence of what we were doing. It was the infancy of what we were doing. And I was trying to find my way.
Yeah.
But I still should have never used John Anthony. Should have never used it. I cringe when I hear that.
Really?
I cringe.
You that bad?
It bothers me.
Why? Like it was, it's...
I was stupid. I had 2 matches. Come on.
The former pro wrestler is funnier to me than the John Anthony part.
Yeah.
Because I just thought that it was like your...
I was known as a reporter in the 70s. I wrote and took pictures for everybody. Yeah. Why would I flush that away for, 6 minutes on TV getting someone sitting on my face to pin me?
It's amazing. But is what it is. I wonder at what point we're going to find the marker where you suddenly go, Anthony's out at Arezzi.
Oh, that's when we go to WGBB.
Okay.
Yeah. So we still got a little bit more time. That happened in September of '90. So
awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks, John, for letting me come through and rip this one apart.
Man. You got it. All right, I'll wrap it up, and it's good to see you. And we'll do another one next week on this wonderful show, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. I do want to remind everybody out there, we have groups that you could join on Facebook. We have 3 of them. 2 are public, 1 is private. So 1 is for Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Just look for that one. And then we have the Matt Memories, public and private pages there. So they both get a lot of activity, and you can meet a lot of fellow wrestling fans there. On social media, follow me on X at John Arezzi. On Instagram is at John Arezzi as well. And that is also my Threads handle. You could follow Marsh on X at Ref Marsh, and at Instagram, I think he might have changed his Instagram handle, but it's Wrestling on the Rocks is what I have. If it's been changed, then we'll correct it next week. If you'd like to get a copy of my book, Matt Memories, send an email to me, john@mattmemories.com. I'd be more than happy to get one out to you and personalize it for you. I want to thank our producer, our creative director, the co-host of these Rewind shows, Marsh. And I want to thank each and every one of the patrons for your support in helping with the production costs of the show. Until next time, when we relive more history in that summer of '89, this is John Arezzi for Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind.
Well, fans, that's all the time we have this week. I'm John Arezzi. See you next time, everybody.